Once again, we are back, and today I'm going to be covering a unique shotgun we haven't really seen before in a Call of Duty game, and this is the R9-0 shotgun. I personally call it the R9-0, but what makes this gun so unique is that not only is it a double barrel, but it's a double barrel pump action shotgun. So essentially after 2 shots, you pump the gun and you're ready for another 2. When this game first came out, I was rocking this bad boy constantly, and it was probably the best shotgun in the game besides the 725. Now I have to mention right off the bat that this gun has been stealth nerfed by Infinity Ward since the game came out without any mention of it in the patch notes. I made a video on this already, so I won't be getting into it too much, but basically the one-shot capability of the R9-0 has been drastically reduced, so you're almost always going to be getting 2-shot kills unless you're in a very close range. With that being said and out of the way, let's go ahead and delve right into the video. The following measurements were tested in DaVinci Resolve, which is a free video editing program. I highly recommend it, and it was captured at around 60 frames per second. The numbers here are as close to exact in milliseconds that I could get, but since I'm limited to just 60 frames per second, the numbers are not going to be as accurate as I wish they could be, unfortunately. First off, let's go ahead and take a look at the barrels. Unlike the other shotguns, the R9-0 only has 2 options for barrels. There's the heavy-duty TAC Sentry barrel, and then there's the TAC Gemini barrel. The base R9-0 has a shockingly short one-shot kill range, and if you play with this gun before its nerf, you'll be able to tell that this gun got nerfed pretty dang hard in this department. It actually had a one-shot kill range comparable to the Model 680, which was actually pretty bonkers if you got to use it. And if you use the TAC Sentry barrel on this gun, you'll see your one-shot potential does go up, but not by a whole lot. It's almost comparable to the Origin 12 in some way. The other barrel, the TAC Gemini, I'm not gonna lie, is pretty bad. The idea with this barrel is it's supposed to widen your pellet spread so that pellets have a better chance of hitting the target. Unfortunately, with how shotguns do damage in this game, you want the most pellets to hit the target as often as possible, so widening your spread may sound good in some ways, but it ultimately leads to more hit markers and fewer one-shot kills, and maybe even less 2-shot kills for that matter. Aiming down sights does help reduce the spread of these barrels, and by a decent amount too. Not quite as much as the Model 680, but a good bit. So at further ranges, I really recommend aiming down sights to get those 1-shot, well mostly 2-shot kills, and it overall does great for this gun. I recommend using the TAC Sentry barrel because the Gemini is just plain bad, and the base barrel is also just bad. This gun needs a lot of help in this department, sadly. And before we move on to the next section, I do want to show you guys the 2-shot kill range for this gun because honestly, this is where the gun shines, and it's, I think, a pretty important part for the gun. So if you take a look here, you'll see that it's got a pretty amazing 2-shot kill range. And yes, this is on a stationary target, so it will be harder to get these consistent 2-shot kills at this particular range when you're actually playing, but the fact that you can actually pull this off is pretty darn amazing. So just keep that in mind with this. Aim down sights if you're going to be going for medium range kills, but with that being said, let's move on to the muzzle attachments. Out of all the attachments here, there again are really only 2 that are really worth your time in a shotgun class. There's the choke attachment, and then there's the suppressor. And as a side note, I was using the TAC Sentry barrel for the muzzle attachment tests, so keep that in mind. So based on my tests, the choke barrel does very slightly increase pellet tightness, but honestly not by a whole lot. Surprisingly though, it was able to help me get a better one-shot kill range with the TAC Sentry barrel equipped. The TAC Sentry with the choke has the best one-shot kill range for this particular gun, excluding the slug rounds. It's not amazing, but compared to the normal one-shot kill range for this gun, it is a much needed boost. Now, taking a look at the suppressor attachment, I was actually surprised to find that the one-shot kill range is actually shorter than the choke. Not only that, but the 2-shot kill range for the suppressor is also a bit shorter than the 2-shot kill range of the choke attachment. The only thing I found that the suppressor has going for it, besides the obvious muffling of your shotgun's sound, is that you can get hit markers from a little bit further away. So the damage range is increased with the suppressor, but honestly, unless you play hardcore, you should not be challenging people at that range unless you know for a fact that the enemy is really weak. And I'm talking like so weak that you could just flick them and they die. So for muzzles, I'm gonna have to recommend the choke attachment because it has a better one-shot kill and it also has a better 2-shot kill range compared to the suppressor and the base gun. Up next, I wanted to take a look at some of the ADS or aim down sights times for these barrels and muzzle attachments and some of the ADS time affecting attachments that we have. So let's get into it. I think it's important to have a fast aim down sight speed while also maintaining your top lethality if you can. So let's start with a base R9-0, which has a base aim down sight speed of 18 frames or 300 milliseconds. The Tech Sentry barrel, which I recommend, puts it at about 20 frames or 333 milliseconds, which is a small increase you'll probably notice when you use the gun. The Tech Gemini, the poopy barrel of the gun, is about 17 frames or about 283 milliseconds, which is better than both other barrels, but again, this barrel is just not worth the effort to put into use in my opinion. Out of the lasers, the tack laser or the giant green laser you get when aiming down sights is the only laser to help with aim down sights time, and it puts it at around 16 frames on the base barrel. The frame penalties and the bonuses do stack, so keep that in mind if you want to maximize your aim down sight speed on any gun, really. The suppressor adds about 2 frames to the base aim down sights time and puts it at around 20 frames or 333 milliseconds. The choke only put it at around 19 frames, so this is yet another reason why I seriously recommend running the choke over the suppressor for overall lethality. The CQB stock puts it at about 17 frames or 283 milliseconds, making it a useful stock attachment given the lack of a no stock attachment on this particular gun. The stipple grip didn't really make much of an impact on ADS time at all. In fact, it was basically around 18 frames or 300 milliseconds, which is basically the time of the base aim down sights time. So from what I can tell, because of my program and measuring it at 60 frames per second, the difference was so small I couldn't really measure it accurately. So because of that, I don't recommend running the stipple grip if you want to lower your aim down sights time. And last, we have the Merc foregrip, which takes it down to about 17 frames or 283 milliseconds, which is yet another good attachment to use for reducing the aim down sights time on this gun. And even though I just covered many of these attachments, I really want to go into detail about each one, but for now, let's go ahead and move on to the sprint out times and the lasers. As a recap, sprint out time is the time it takes to go from sprinting to shooting your gun. Not aiming your gun, but shooting it. It is a really important factor in making your gun good and rushing friendly and overall much more effective to use in my opinion. The base sprint out time for the R9-0 is at around 283 milliseconds, which is pretty average overall. Now there are 3 attachments we can use to lower this time and make your gun ready after sprinting a lot quicker. There's the 1 milliwatt red laser, the 5 milliwatt green laser, and the stippled grip. The 1 milliwatt laser takes your sprint out time down to about 233 milliseconds, which is actually a better increase than the other shotguns I've reviewed. And it's not amazing, but comparatively speaking, it's much better. The 5 milliwatt laser takes your sprint out time down to 167 milliseconds, which is equal to the other shotguns equipped with this green laser, and this is a really good sprint out time to have. I almost always recommend this laser on any shotgun or any rushing class. The stippled grip will take your sprint out time down to roughly 233 milliseconds as well, which is about the same as the 1 milliwatt laser. Now, if you combine the 1 milliwatt laser with the stippled grip, it goes down to about 183 milliseconds. This isn't as good as the green laser, but considering you don't have a giant green laser poking around, it's actually not a bad trade-off at all. And last, if we combine the 5 milliwatt green laser with the stippled grip, we get a really ultimate fast sprint out time of 133 milliseconds, which is really quick and is borderline SMG territory. Now, because it's so fast, and I really believe it's important for shotguns, I really recommend you guys running the 5 milliwatt with the stippled grip. You can get away with the stippled grip and the red laser, but if you're a more aggressive player like me who likes to rush around a lot, stick with the 5 milliwatt laser. And as a tip, remember that the green laser is not visible when you are aiming down sights or when you are sprinting. So just keep that in mind when you're out there playing. Just keep it in the back of your head. Now we're going to move into the stock category, which is probably not going to be long at all. There's only 3 stock attachments, but none of them except one are really worth your time and attention in my opinion for a shotgun class, and that is the close quarters stock, which helps reduce your aim down sights time. One stock helps with idle sway stability, which isn't really that necessary on a shotgun, unless you're running slugs, of course. And the other one helps you move faster while you're aiming, which can be useful, but ultimately, aim down sights time takes precedence over these other traits in my opinion for a shotgun class, so I really recommend you guys choosing the close quarters stock. It takes your aim down sights time down about a frame or so, which is a nice little bonus considering it can stack with other attachments. For the next category, we're going to take a look at the grips that the R9-0 shotgun has to offer, and you'll find that much like the stock attachments, there's only really one attachment here really worth your time, and you probably guessed it, it's the stippled grip. It gives you the added benefit of a faster sprint out time, and even though it says you get an aim down sight speed bonus, I don't really count that because it's too small for me to measure really at 60 frames per second. The sprint out time bonus takes it down to about 233 milliseconds, and like I stated before, you can stack that with one of the lasers, and you can make the sprint out time even faster for this gun. You can bring it down to either 183 with the red laser or 133 milliseconds with the green laser, and that depends entirely on which one you pick. So for grips, I'm gonna have to go with the stippled grip, and I really recommend you guys do the same. Now before we look at the slugs, which I'm sure everybody's excited to know about, let's take a look at the underbarrel grips that we have. And yet again, you're going to see that there really is no competition for the best attachment to make this shotgun perform better. The Merc 4 grip is my choice here because it helps with your aim down sight's time, and it does give you a small bonus to recoil management, which is a nice little perk. It's not really necessary because there isn't really too much recoil on this gun, and most people probably won't find it hard to control, but the fact that we get it is a nice little bonus nonetheless. Unlike the other attachments though, there is a movement speed penalty, unfortunately, which we do need to keep in mind. How bad is it? Well, as you can see from the video comparison, it's there, but it's very slight. And I have a feeling most people probably wouldn't even notice the penalty, which is great. But also given the fact that the other grips don't really serve a good purpose for the shotgun since recoil isn't that bad, and since your aiming stability isn't really necessary, the Merc 4 grip wins for best grip. And now for what most of you are probably wanting to know about, how are the slugs on the R9-0? You might be surprised to hear this, but the slugs on the R9-0 are actually not terrible. They aren't amazing, and they're not really great, but they're actually slightly usable, at least compared to the model and the origin slugs. And I don't know if I just got used to how bad they were, but these particular ones aren't that terrible. The trajectory of the slug still leads to some weird hit markers and some unusual misses though. But I found that being able to shoot twice quickly before reloading really helped. The slugs also have a decent one-shot kill range on this particular gun, and headshots do deal extra bonus damage. The one-shot range to the head is actually pretty darn good, but realistically it's going to be really difficult to get headshots at any range past like 20 feet, especially on a moving target and especially on someone already shooting at you. It isn't easy by any means, and if you already have a hard time with this gun, then slugs are going to make it much more difficult for you, I can promise you that. But they are fun at times when they do work, and it's oddly satisfying to catch people off guard with them. They don't have the same power as the 725 slugs, but the slugs on the R9-0 are a step up compared to the other two shotguns I mentioned. So I suggest you try and get in a game of ground war and equip the slugs there. The amount of people you run into is a lot higher, and it gives you a good chance to experiment with them and mess around with them. If you play with slugs in a 6v6, usually you're gonna have a bad time. With the R9-0, as long as you aren't playing too aggressive, it is possible to do some work, and it's a lot of fun when it does work. But you do have to be quite accurate with this gun. Aiming stability may be an issue if you're trying to go for really long range shots, but given that you don't need to be engaging people from that far away with slugs, I don't think it's really warranted to equip any attachments to mitigate idle sway or even recoil for that matter. You need to be playing in that medium range area, and that's really where this is going to shine, and your points are better spent elsewhere than on attachments that mitigate recoil, for example. And there you have it, folks. I went over what I consider to be the best attachments to really look at for this gun and to really avoid, and hopefully you guys have a better understanding of the gun and what attachments you should be using. Now, for the last part, I'm going to show you my personal R9-0 class. This class is going to focus heavily on range and being quick on the draw. So I use the choke attachment, the sentry barrel, the 5 milliwatt green laser, the close quarter stock, and the stippled grip tape. This class can do some pretty devastating damage to unsuspecting players. Now with this gun, remember that it's always 2 shots and then a pump, and the time that it takes to pump can get you killed quite often. The way you should play with this gun is to always expect a 2-shot kill. Never expect a 1-shot unless you are basically in slapping distance. It's safe to assume that you're going to need a second shot to kill someone a majority of the time, especially after this secret nerf we've gotten with it. And make sure you are aiming down sights whenever possible, especially at medium ranges, which in my opinion is where this gun really shines. So that is it for the statistical part of the video. At this point, if you guys were here just for the class setup and the gun guide, that's pretty much it. But right now I'm going to take a second to talk about my channel and kind of what's been going on. So first off, if you haven't heard, I finally hit 1,000 subscribers on my channel. And honestly, I'm pretty dang shocked to have gotten to this point. I never expected to be here and having people actually appreciate videos that I make, and because of that, I really just wanted to say thank you guys. You, the person watching this, all of my subscribers, all of you guys commenting and liking the video, I can't thank you guys enough. This is honestly kind of a little bit of a dream come true because I am now a YouTube partner, and it's really amazing to think that I can say that. Even if it's just 1,000 subs, this is still a really big moment for me. So YouTube is just, it's a fun thing for me, and I love being able to bring you guys good quality content, and I'd love to be able to do something like this full time in the future, which, I mean, that's like a far distant dream, but it's a dream nonetheless, and it's something that I want to work towards. So I want you guys to know that I do see your comments and I do appreciate you, and I really want to be able to engage with you guys as much as I can. So just keep doing what you guys are doing. Stay awesome, and just know that I really appreciate the support and I love it. So thank you guys so much. And I have many more videos to come. My next video is probably going to be something a little bit different, and then I'll probably end up doing the 725 shotgun guide. These guides do take a little bit of time, so bear with me on that, but I'm also here to, have some fun. I might do a funny video here or two, and also just I might start going back to look at other shotguns from other Call of Duties, because now that we only have 4, well, there's so much content you can make on just 4 weapons, so I might do gun guides on other weapons, but for now I'm going to stick with shotguns for a little bit and maybe revisit some older CODs. So I've droned on long enough, so with that I really want to end it here and say thank you one more time, and I will see you guys in the next video.